Madam Speaker, I rise to ask question 76 of 2017. The question is directed to the Minister for Education, Heritage and Arts. Honourable Minister, your ministry has a zero-tolerance policy on child abuse, child labour, trafficking and exploitation in schools. Can the Minister inform the House of the ministry's strategies to eradicate such notorious behaviours in school?
Thank you. I give the floor to the Honourable Minister for Education, Heritage and Arts.
Speaker, I would want to thank the Honourable Member for asking this question. It gives me an opportunity to highlight what we are doing in this area. Madam Speaker, our government is joining the global movement to protect our children and ensure that there is no obstacle with regard to their growth, development and education. Madam Speaker, our ministry over the last 2 years have evaluated the child protection and welfare policies and streamlined it to suit the needs of contemporary students, contemporary challenges that they are facing. Madam Speaker, you and members of this House are aware the kinds of challenges, kinds of issues, kinds of problems our children are facing now, which never used to exist during our time when we were in school. It is in this regard that over time, new policies need to be brought in or existing policies need to be revised. So I'm going to shed some light on that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have put policies and strategies in place to eliminate child abuse, child issues, that is national monitoring on absence, academic results, indiscipline cases, and children's health, which assists us to track the student and intervene, observance of key events, activity involving students, upskilling and professional development of educators, strengthening rights of children, such as zero tolerance to corporal punishment, and through greater parental involvement in educational awareness of students on their privilege and rights. On the latter, Madam Speaker, you would have noted beginning of last year we launched our Pillar 4 on parental engagement, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have given clear indication of our stance on eradicating child abuse and exploitation in schools through various written policies. Let me highlight and list down these 5 policies. The policy on drugs and substance abuse, which came into effect in 2012, Madam Speaker. This was then revised last year. The child protection policy that came into effect January last year, Madam Speaker. Behavior management policy that came into effect in January 2015, Madam Speaker. Basically, as a result of rise in student indiscipline issues in schools, that we decided to develop a policy on behavior management to assist our school teachers to deal with those cases. Yesterday I spoke about at length on the boarding policy in schools, which also deals with how we look after our children in boarding facilities. The boarding policy came in January this year, along with a policy on school counselling, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the child protection policy is in line with Fiji's commitment under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Under this policy, bullying in any form, whether physical, verbal, emotional, sexual or spiritual, is prohibited. Child labour, child trafficking and child abuse, whether physical or emotional, are also prohibited under the policy of child protection. Madam Speaker, as a strategy, we have deployed child protection officers, trained teachers in all our primary and secondary schools. These officers are teachers and have received training by our policy section. These officers are very well versed with the policy and the obligations to report matters. So these officers know very well what will happen when the cases comes up, what kind of reports needs to be done, who needs to be called up, at what particular point in time the parents needs to be invited over, what kind of documentation needs to be done, when do we call in the counsellors, when do we call in Ministry for Social Welfare to deal with the particular issue. Madam Speaker, there is requirement of mandatory reporting of any suspected or known child abuse case or exploitation to ministry under our child protection policy, as well as the Child Welfare Act, which is under the purview of Ministry of Social Welfare. Madam Speaker, the strategy of having a child protection officer in every school has proved successful because we have received increased incidents of cases that were being reported through various means, for example, police as well as Ministry of Social Welfare. In addition, we have zero tolerance on corporal punishment, Madam Speaker, and I've made it very clear to our stakeholders, the teachers and heads of schools, that the Ministry does not tolerate any form of abuse. Our zero tolerance to corporal punishment also encompasses children's right not to be belittled or verbally abused in front of others or other teachers as well. Madam Speaker, the behavior management policy ensures that student discipline issues and behavior is managed through a consistent and acceptable manner. Madam Speaker, sometimes it is not the teachers or stakeholders that engage in child abuse exploitation. It is sometimes the students themselves who engage in bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, bruise snipping, truancy, drug problems, etc. Madam Speaker. And these things, so small in numbers, but the trend demonstrates, Madam Speaker, there's an increase. And therefore, we need to be vigilant, we need to take decisive steps to ensure that we nip these things in the bud. Madam Speaker, yesterday I spoke about the boarding policy and how we've inserted clauses to deal with the issue of child abuse, student bullying. Madam Speaker, apart from the strategies laid out in the policies, our Ministry has also signed the Interagency Guideline on Child Abuse and Neglect on 17 December 2015. The Department of Social Welfare, under the then Minister for Social Welfare, Honorable Akbar, jointly with Fiji Police Force, the Ministry of Employment and Ministry of Health and Medical Services as well. The guideline ensures that key ministries will work together in sharing data and bring justice to the victims of child abuse, neglect, exploitation, child labour and trafficking, Madam Speaker. Because prior to that, Madam Speaker, data, we did not have national data. There was some data reported to the police, some data to Ministry of Social Welfare, some with Ministry of Education. So if anyone wanted to know what is the gravity of that matter, then it was difficult because we did not pool the data. So it is in this regard that this joint interagency guidelines were established and a joint committee was established where monthly they meet and share the data, remove duplication and come up with the true data on child abuse or relating to child at the national level. And Speaker, all secondary schools engage in the blue light program, whereby the police officers comes in schools and create awareness on child labour, child abuse and various forms of exploitation. When I speak of this year, this has begun from last year in the Western Division, where the members from the Fiji Police Force are visiting schools to talk to children and explain to them about their responsibilities, about their rights, and what is expected of them as well, given that now we don't have corporal punishment, and the kind of behavior, conduct that is expected of them as well, and the possible consequences, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, similar training programs take place in school by other stakeholders such as Department of Social Welfare, Ministry of Health as well as Fiji Women's Rights Movement. Madam Speaker, last year we launched our Pillar 4, which requires compulsory parental engagement in the children's education. We gave out the framework, we put out we insert in the papers, and this year, Madam Speaker, we again sent out we printed over 200,000 copies of two-page back-to-back parental engagement framework, and we gave it to the schools, coloured one, to pass it to every child to take that home with a note that the parents must read that and pick up some of the strategies we have outlined on how you should engage with your child. It's a guideline, Madam Speaker, to encourage parents to know what the child is doing, whom the child is talking to, engaging, what kind of problems the child may be facing, and how the child wants the parents to deal with those. Madam Speaker, another strategy that the Ministry focuses on is actively involved in observance and celebration of International Awareness Day, Madam Speaker. It allows us to mobilize the entire country on that particular day to look after our child, Madam Speaker. For example, World Day Against Child Labour, campaign on International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, World Day for Prevention of Child Abuse, Constitution Day, Children's Day, National Anti-Suicide Discourse Awareness Day. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, during lunchtime, I visited Suva's special school where we observed World Down Syndrome Day, Madam Speaker, a syndrome where normal child who has 2 chromosomes, these children who are in special schools, they have third chromosome, which affects their performance and makes them slightly abnormal, Madam Speaker. So we observed that day yesterday and gave a message out that these children who are in special schools, so they are special children, are given special treatment, but they are us, there's ours, and we want them to grow normally, we want them to be part of this society, Madam Speaker. So this was an assurance that we gave on behalf of our government that if you look at last year's budget, Madam Speaker, we have allocated special grant, raised the per capita grant of special schools because we want them to get special treatment and special attention, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, awareness on the rights of children and values through curriculum inclusion is another strategy. The rights of child are specified, included in the Year 10 social science curriculum. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights is also very well covered. And now we are, Madam Speaker, working very closely with the Human Rights Commission to develop supporting resource material, which we will provide to our teachers to use it in their education and training of children about human rights, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is in brief about some of the things that we are doing to ensure that our child are protected, looked after, and we ultimately allow them to realize their dreams and allow parents to ensure that their dreams about their children are also realized. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Salvatore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Child protection policy ensures the well-being, safety, respect and dignity of children are respected, and also that conducive learning environment is provided. So can the Minister explain how or what strategies are in place to address the emotional abuse of children that are still learning intense from after Winston until now? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Member doesn't realize that our first step was to ensure that the children's education is not affected. Madam Speaker, there was a great danger. If you look at Vanuatu's case, Madam Speaker, after Cyclone Perm, for months the children were staying at home, and when they came back, they found a 20% dropout rate, Madam Speaker, because they were used to the home condition. They didn't want to, didn't feel like coming back to school. So, Madam Speaker, what we did at that point in time, this was not normal tense that she is saying. Look, I think, Madam Speaker, Honourable Members should utilize the right terminology. These are temporary learning space, Madam Speaker. This is not tense, Madam Speaker. Secondly, we do acknowledge that there's no substitute for a normal classroom. A temporary learning space, but it is a learning space, it's not a tent, Madam Speaker. So first thing what we did, Madam Speaker, we wanted to get them back to school. Madam Speaker, in the world, entire world, this is a record time, within 2 weeks, Madam Speaker, of such a massive cyclone, we were able to motivate them and get them back to school, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank all stakeholders, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they are peddling incorrect data. Madam Speaker, they don't even know what proportion of students are studying in 10, Madam Speaker. They're peddling incorrect data. Madam Speaker, so what we wanted, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that the children's dream about education and better future is not affected. That's why we ensured that we get organized temporary learning space. So, Madam Speaker, I want to ask the Honourable Member, show me evidence that she has said that they are emotionally disturbed, Madam Speaker. What is it? It's always we see them blending the statements without any factual evidence, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Honourable Minister for his explanation, but in this newspaper article, he is saying about not if students to face expulsion. And he's telling us about all the programs that are in place at the Ministry of Education. And it's quite a dangerous trend to okay, I'll look this way. It's quite a dangerous trend to give authority to schools to expel students. And this is the way, Madam Speaker, that the Ministry will adopt. And advise, yeah, I'm looking this way. This is the way that the Minister will want schools to carry out in order to eradicate behavior problems in the school, as according to the newspaper article. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Speaker, yeah, the latter part of his comment statement is true, but there is a lot of things that need to be done leading up to expulsion of a child. Madam Speaker, wait, let me explain. You asked a question, it's my turn to explain, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a school is a place for teaching and learning. There are students who come with dreams to learn, to educate, to become responsible citizens of this country, as well as have a better future, Madam Speaker. And our government is investing a lot of money, Madam Speaker. There are 226,000 students in our school system, Madam Speaker. Bundled with them are parents' dreams as well, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our children need to be protected. That's what I'm talking about, child protection policy. Wait, coming there. Our teachers need to be protected, Madam Speaker. When we find that children, despite repeated counseling, despite being given warning letters, despite calling up the parents to look after the children and advise them, mentor them, you still find that they are engaged in harassment of fellow students, harassment of teachers, bullying, despite knowing very well, Madam Speaker, we don't have any corporal punishment now. We need to protect other children. We need to protect our teachers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we can't convert a school into a rehabilitation center, Madam Speaker. A school is a place for teaching and learning, Madam Speaker. Wow. Madam Speaker, if the student cannot behave and conduct himself or herself as a child, want to behave like an adult, take the children home, rehabilitate the child, come back to us, we will undertake some tests and we'll admit the child. Thank you.
Honourable Kiraki.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Speaker. Just I note that while the Honourable Minister was delivering his ministerial statement, all the other members are looking at their mobile or uninterested. So I stand on the points that was raised here yesterday about the overcrowding at QES. I did check, and that old dormitory that has been converted into a classroom, there are 31 students that have been shifted to the recreation room that is used for recreation, ironing, and storage of suitcases. You can put only tennis table, ping pong table where two kids can play in that room, and it accommodates 31 students. So the students, they shift to this old classroom or old dormitory for classroom. They sleep on the floor, and you will imagine the hygienic and the position. My question is, can you address this for the abuse of the children?
In the absence of a question, would you like to make a response?
Madam Speaker, when people talk about overcrowding, what causes overcrowding, Madam Speaker? It is because people deliberately want to send their child to that particular school. We have got schools which has got 19 students in a classroom, 20 students in a classroom. Despite us telling them that, look, we're going to give you a place for your child, they force themselves. They go all over the place to get a place in Kivius or RKC. Now, they come around, they sneak into the school, take photos and come and say, oh, it's overcrowded, oh, it's leaking, etc. Madam Speaker, I think they need to get real. They need to be reasonable about these things. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the Honourable Prem Singh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let's come back to the original question. Who is responsible for taking injured children to hospitals from schools? I know of a case in Viria 2 weeks ago where a child was injured and he went home on his own, and later on X-ray results showed that he had a cracked thigh or femur.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, normally in a high school, it's the assistant principal who is tasked to look after children's discipline issues, and if there's any issue, any medical issue, then the assistant principal is allowed to take the child to the hospital and bring them back. But there are certain procedures that needs to be followed. For example, immediately inform the parent that the child is having this condition and taken to the hospital, etc. In a high school, in a primary school, is the assistant head teacher or the executive teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Nawaiku.
The Honourable Minister is advising here, if children continue to behave mischievously, send them home. And he should admit that the problem here is we do not have professional counsellors. I have not seen in any of the schools I go to people who are fully trained and qualified counsellors. So can he advise this House or inform this House how many counsellors are there and how will you address that problem of ensuring that each school has a professional, not just anyone, professional counsellor, qualified?
Minister.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I think some time back I alluded to this issue about having full-time counsellors in schools. Let me explain. You have asked a question, let me explain. Madam Speaker, it's not about having a professional counsellor in school. It's about motivating the child to come and share the issue with the counsellor. So really, Madam Speaker, the problem is children are not coming up to share. So what happens is when you have a full-time counsellor in every little school, that is waste of money, Madam Speaker, because the counsellor doesn't have work to do. So what we are doing, Madam Speaker, we're appointing counsellors to look after cluster of schools, Madam Speaker. Cluster of schools. For example, one counsellor will look after 10 schools. And if there's a problem in a particular school, then the counsellor will spend the next 2 weeks in that school. The second is, Madam Speaker, wait, Madam Speaker. Then what we are doing, Madam Speaker, we are undertaking counselling skills training for all our teachers to have basic counselling skills, Madam Speaker, so that it's happening in 2 years. So that, Madam Speaker, when a child comes up with any problem or the teacher observes any particular problem with the child, the teacher doesn't run away quickly to the head teacher or principal saying, oh, I can't handle it, I don't have the skills, Madam Speaker. No. What we want to do is every teacher must have some basic counselling skill, Madam Speaker. They can't get it, Madam Speaker. It's beyond them. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to remind members, please, although interjections are allowed and accommodated within Parliament, you need to be more restrictive about it, because you are actually disrupting and disturbing the responses that have been given. And I will now give the last question to the Honourable Parental.
Madam Speaker, my question was already the same thing that I was going to ask.
Thank you. In that case, I will give the last question to the Honourable Nduleki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Honourable Minister for the response. Madam Speaker, when one sends his or her child to school, they expect to have a fully developed child when he finishes. Madam Speaker, there are some of the policies that have stopped children from doing extracurricular activities like weeding, gardening and all these things. These are lifetime skills. If these things are stopped in schools, where else, Honourable Minister, will these people learn of these skills? Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
If not at home.
Madam Speaker, over the last decade or so, parents have passed on their responsibility and obligation to the school system, Madam Speaker, and putting unnecessary pressure on our teachers to teach everything, moral values, all kinds of things, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think parents must take ownership of their child's growth and development as well as equally as our teachers are doing, Madam Speaker. The other thing, Madam Speaker, we need to understand, we cannot divert teaching time away to all the other issues, Madam Speaker, discipline, student management, etc., Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.